Welcome to the debate. Imagine you are learning to fly a commercial jet.
Okay, I'm with you.
You get into the simulator on day one, and you're expecting to learn how to operate, the state-of-the-art navigation systems.
Right, the autopilot, all the fancy glass screens.
Exactly. But instead, your instructor, they just completely refuse to let you touch the autopilot. They turn off the digital screens, pull out paper charts, and make you fly by reading analog instruments.
What sounds honestly terrifying.
Right? You're feeling the actual mechanical drag of the aircraft. Well, today, we're looking at a professional curriculum that does exactly this, but for artificial intelligence. We're diving into the certification standards for advisors who build living professional records.
Which are essentially fully verified, evidence-backed career portfolios.
Spot on. And we're looking specifically at Module 7 of their Notebook LM production packet. This is the core training documentation that outlines how these advisors are actually taught to use AI. I'll be arguing that the manual, almost analog governance they teach is the absolute bedrock of professional truth.
And I'll be arguing that divorcing the training process from the ultimate automated product feature creates, well, an artificial curriculum that's kind of disconnected from real-world workflows. It is a really fascinating fracture point in the curriculum.
It really is.
The central disagreement we are exploring today revolves around a very strict boundary this curriculum enforces. On one side, you have the, quote, AI assist LPR training mode, right? Where candidates are basically forced to use general AI tools and manually govern every single output.
Every single one.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you have the official integrated product feature known as the Record Automated, which notably they aren't allowed to rely on until they actually pass certification. So the question is, does mandating candidates to manually govern general AI tools actually build essential professional judgment? Or, does isolating them from the official automated tool just create a highly inefficient curriculum?
I completely represent the position that this strict boundary, forcing candidates to manually govern AI before they get the keys to the automated kingdom, is a non-negotiable necessity. Like, if an advisor jumps straight into using an automated platform that ingests a client's messy career history and instantly generates a polished portfolio,
they become dependent operators.
Exactly. They become end users of a software product, rather than true strategic advisors. I mean, to actually advise a client, you must first prove you can manually capture raw evidence, reconstruct the context of what a person actually did, map those claims to market demand, apply privacy labels, and, make independent rendering decisions, all before you ever let an algorithm touch the material.
Right, and I take the opposing view here. While I agree that intellectual governance of AI is absolutely crucial, the curriculum's mandated workflow feels deeply anachronistic to me. I mean, the Record Automated is explicitly acknowledged as a separate official tool designed specifically to process messy user materials quickly and securely.
But they shouldn't become dependent on that automation before they understand the method.
Sure, but by forcing candidates into this artificial training mode where they have to manually build what are called safe source packets and maintain these tedious manual AI translation logs using generic AI tools, the Academy is essentially ignoring the reality of the advisor's job.
I wouldn't say ignoring.
Well, these advisors will eventually be overseeing a highly integrated, automated system, right? Teaching them how to operate manual gears when the entire industry is moving to a sophisticated automatic transmission. It just focuses on the wrong type of governance altogether.
Well, to understand why this manual process is so vital, we have to look at the precise mechanics of what the curriculum actually demands. There is a specific section we're focusing on, Clip 7, which draws a hard line in the sand.
Right, the AI assist is not the Record Automated clip.
Exactly. It states that AI assist LPR training mode is fundamentally not the same as the Record Automated. During certification, candidates have to use general AI tools under strict governance. They are required to deeply understand the manual process first, and that means capturing evidence, translating market language, reviewing the AI output line by line, and assembling the record by hand.
Which is exactly where I see the disconnect. I mean, if you're listening to this and thinking, why on earth would I use general AI in a heavily monitored manual way if a perfectly safe automated tool exists? You are hitting on the exact paradox of this training module.
But think about the pedagogy here. Teaching them only the automated system is it's like teaching a culinary student to cook using only a high-end microwave.
Okay, a microwave.
Yeah, sure, the microwave is fast, and it might even have a smart sensor to perfectly steam vegetables. But if the microwave breaks, or if a customer asks for a custom dish that requires, precise temperature control on a stove, that chef has no underlying knowledge of heat, chemistry, or flavor profiles to fall back on.
I see where you're going.
Right. When a candidate uses general AI in training mode, they are forced to see the raw, unpolished translation attempt. They get to see exactly how large language models hallucinate, because AI doesn't know truth. It just predicts the next most mathematically probable word. They learn to manually correct that probabilistic drift before it becomes a permanent part of someone's professional record.
I come at it from a different way. Your chef analogy is vivid, but nobody is asking a modern chef to chop wood to understand how a digital induction stove works. More importantly, they learn the failure modes of the specific equipment they will use.
But the underlying failure modes are the same.
Not necessarily. The official tool, the Record Automated, is explicitly built to ingest and structure chaos. If that official tool is what they will use day in and day out, forcing candidates to pre-structure everything perfectly in general AI tools under artificial training rules, it just fails to teach them how to govern the actual automated system.
I completely disagree with that.
You are basically teaching them how to fight the generic algorithms of ChatGPT, not how to master the proprietary platform they will actually be relying on.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning at all, because the automated system, no matter how proprietary, is still built on those exact same manual mechanics under the hood. And the stakes of this data are incredibly high.
Well, yes, the stakes are high.
Right, so if an advisor gets lazy and lets an algorithm inflate a client's resume, that client could find themselves in an interview unable to defend a claim, or worse, get fired down the line for misrepresentation. The core doctrine here is that fluency is not evidence. And this is the central danger of the AI age, right? We are biologically wired to trust confidence.
Because the grammar is perfect?
Exactly. Because the AI speaks with perfect grammar, our brains trick us into thinking it's telling the truth. The manual training is literally a forced psychological rewiring to break that automatic trust.
Okay, I agree completely that fluency isn't evidence. But you are assuming the official Record Automated tool produces the exact same generic, overly confident outputs as a raw, ungoverned AI. A specialized tool designed for this specific ecosystem would presumably have algorithmic guardrails against that exact type of inflation.
It still uses AI, though.
True, but by isolating the candidate from the official tool, you are training them for a generalized threat rather than the specific environment they will actually work in.
The danger of AI inflation exists regardless of the platform, because of how these models inherently function. I mean, let's look at how this plays out in reality. Suppose a client comes to you with raw evidence that they created a shared onboarding checklist for one small team during a period of high turnover, and their manager reviewed it.
Pretty standard raw evidence.
Right. But any AI, even a finely tuned one inside a proprietary tool, has a tendency to elevate that language because it associates checklist with onboarding and onboarding with organizational transformation in its training data. The AI might turn that raw evidence into something like spearheaded enterprise-wide onboarding transformation, reducing ramp time and improving cross-functional alignment.
Right, and obviously spearheaded, enterprise, and transformation are just massive, unsupported inflations based on the actual evidence provided.
Exactly. And the candidate has to manually break that down. They have to recognize that spearheaded is an unsupported verb if they only coordinated a piece of the project. They have to catch the invented outcome of reducing ramp time. The manual AI assist training forces them to literally log these rejections.
The rejected claims log.
Yes. They have to write down the inflated claim, document why it was rejected, and supply the safer replacement, which should be something grounded, like created a shared onboarding checklist for one team during high turnover, coordinating manager input. It is definitely less flashy, but it is structurally sound and completely trustworthy.
Okay, if we accept premise that spotting AI inflation is a critical manual skill, which I do, the real question becomes how you actually test for that in practice. And this is where I think the curriculum's capstone requirement completely contradicts itself.
How so?
Well, the module explicitly warns candidates not to become dependent on automation. Yet, it makes AI use mandatory in the final capstone. Every single candidate must demonstrate governed AI-assisted work to pass.
Because the reality of the market is that their future clients will absolutely be using AI. Clients use it casually every day. They ask AI to make them sound more senior, and they believe the output just because it sounds professional. The advisor must know how to intervene and deconstruct that output. The capstone ensures they have personally practiced this specific intervention.
But look at the traceability paradox this creates. To prove this intervention, the capstone forces candidates into the agonizingly tedious task of maintaining a manual AI translation log. I mean, this isn't just a quick check. Every time you use the AI, you have to log the date, the specific tool used, the purpose, the exact source material, the privacy status, a summary of your prompt, the claims you accepted, the claims you rejected, and your final rendering decision.
It builds discipline.
It is an exercise in extreme, localized inefficiency. If the ultimate goal of adopting software is efficiency and accuracy, forcing a candidate to manually document every micro decision from a general AI tool is pure busywork. It is simulating a friction that the final automated product is specifically designed to eliminate.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. That busy work, as you call it, is the actual mechanism of accountability. The curriculum refers to this as preventing professional amnesia.
Professional amnesia.
Yeah. Think about what happens when you just click a button and let an automated tool generate a full portfolio. You instantly lose the provenance of the language. You lose the trail of exactly what the machine invented and what a human actually verified. The manual log forces the brain into a slower, more deliberate mode of thinking. It proves that the candidate can trace a beautifully polished sentence all the way back to the raw, messy, governed source material. It ensures the human is driving the vehicle, not just falling asleep at the wheel.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. We both agree on the necessity of human review. The material makes it perfectly clear that AI output only becomes useful after a human looks at it. But let's look at the actual workflow they demand before you even type a prompt.
The safe source packets.
Exactly. The curriculum insists that candidates manually prepare a safe source packet. That means they have to manually read through the client's documents, physically strip out confidential employer files, apply privacy labels, and write safe summaries before the AI is even allowed to see it. If the official record automated tool is engineered to securely handle raw, messy data within a closed environment, teaching candidates to fear data ingestion and manually redact everything for open source AI tools it's training them for a workflow they will abandon on day one.
They cannot abandon that workflow because privacy discipline is a fundamental pillar of professional truth. You don't just learn privacy in theory, you have to practice it mechanically.
But if the software is secure,
But what if it's not the software they're using in that exact moment? If a candidate becomes completely reliant on the secure walls of the record automated, what happens when a client forwards them a highly sensitive document over email and asks for a quick AI summary using a third-party tool? The advisor needs the foundational muscle memory to immediately say, "Stop. We need a safe source packet. We need placeholders. We need metadata-only notes." You don't get that muscle memory if the software has always handled the redaction for you.
that's a compelling argument. But have you considered that these exact risks, the privacy exposure, the genericizing of language, the hallucinated claims, are precisely why governance should be taught natively within the interface of the record automated?
It still needs to be taught manually first.
But if the official tool is the designated safe environment, why train candidates to manually navigate the minefield of general tools? It creates a massive cognitive dissonance for the learner. You're basically treating the software as a crutch to be avoided, rather than the primary professional instrument of their trade.
I would argue it is treating the software as a translator rather than an authority. That distinction is the beating heart of this entire curriculum. The record governs AI. AI does not govern the record. When a candidate uses AI Assist training mode, they are forced to reckon with the inherent limitations of machine translation. I mean, let's look at the concept of market translation.
Okay.
An advisor might use AI to brainstorm possible job titles or search terms based on a client's history. The AI might suggest, say, onboarding operations, or enablement, or documentation specialist.
And it is crucial to note that these AI suggestions are just hypotheses. They are not authoritative facts.
Exactly. They're just guesses based on math. The advisor has to manually test those hypotheses against the actual evidence, the client's career trajectory, and the specific proof gaps in their record. If the candidate is just pushing buttons in the record automated, they might naturally assume the system's algorithm has already performed that validation behind the scenes.
They might.
By forcing them to do it manually in training, the Academy ensures they know how to interrogate the machine's underlying assumptions. They learn to instinctively ask, did the AI just erase the client's distinctive, messy contribution in order to make them sound like a generic executive?
I completely agree that the advisor must interrogate the machine's assumptions. Absolutely. But I continually question the artificial separation of the training environment. Let's translate some of the jargon here, actually. The curriculum talks a lot about balancing machine-readable and human-believable signals.
Yes, a very important concept.
Basically, machine-readable means the text is stuffed with the right SEO keywords to pass through an automated HR filter. Human-believable means that when a real hiring manager actually reads it, it sounds like a real person did the work. It has operational texture and realistic detail.
Right.
So an AI draft might travel perfectly through a software system because it's highly machine-readable, but it totally fails the human-believable test because it lacks that messy reality.
Yes, and that is precisely why the standard is that data must be structured enough to travel, but specific enough to be trusted. AI is fantastic at the structure. It can organize the data beautifully, but only the rigorous manual verification of evidence can actually supply the trust.
But doesn't the record automated theoretically achieve both? I mean, if this product feature is officially designed to process messy materials into a comprehensive package, it must be engineered to balance that machine readability with human believability. If the curriculum truly believes its own product works, it should train candidates on how to oversee and adjust that specific balance within the platform's interface, rather than forcing them to achieve it from scratch using generic AI prompts.
Well, that implies a level of perfection in software architecture that simply does not exist. Algorithms are fallible because the data they are trained on is fallible. There's a fantastic scenario presented in the training materials regarding the psychological pull of automation.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
Yeah. Imagine a client reads an AI-generated summary of their own career and says, "Wow, AI made this sound amazing." The weak, dependent advisor says, "Great, let's use it." That response accepts fluency as proof. The trained, rigorous response is, "It may sound strong, but we need to check every single claim against the raw evidence."
I love that scenario because it perfectly highlights the cognitive trap. The client is drawn to the polished surface. They want to sound amazing. Who wouldn't?
Right, and it is the advisor's job to break that spell. They have to pull the client back to reality. Here is another common situation. A client admits, okay, this AI bullet point isn't exactly true, but it will definitely get a recruiter's attention.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. And the advisor has to have the foundational discipline to say, if it is not true and fully supportable by evidence, we cannot use it. A bullet point that gets attention but crumbles under questioning in an interview destroys your credibility.
Absolutely.
That level of conviction, that willingness to reject a beautiful, highly optimized lie is forged in the grueling manual practice of the AI output claim check. You simply cannot develop that intellectual spine if you let the software do the heavy lifting for you from day one.
I will concede that the manual process builds a certain undeniable intellectual rigor when a candidate has to look at an emerging claim. For example, let's say a client completed a 6-week data analytics course and built a practice dashboard, right? But they have absolutely no real-world workplace application of that skill yet.
That is a classic emerging claim. It's a real skill, but it's just not mature.
Right. And a general AI trying to be helpful might immediately inflate that to, data analytics professional with proven reporting expertise. The manual training emphasizes that the safer, more accurate rendering should be something like building data analytics capability through coursework and practice dashboard development.
Which is much more accurate.
Exactly. The advisor learns to use precise phrases like learning, applying in practice, or gaining exposure to. I agree that mastering this vocabulary of truth is a vital skill. My contention is simply that divorcing this practice from the actual tools they will use daily creates a friction that just doesn't need to exist. We should absolutely teach them to spot that inflation, but we should teach them to spot it within the interface of the record automated.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. The friction isn't a bug in the curriculum. The friction is the entire point. The friction is where the learning actually happens. Candidates are required to explain their AI use in a final reflection memo. They have to articulate exactly what the AI got right, what it got wrong, and what they manually corrected. If the official tool is too seamless, if it catches all the errors for them, there is no friction to reflect upon.
That assumes friction is the only way to learn.
The candidate must prove that they can govern this process manually with their own judgment before they earn the right to trust the automation.
I think it ultimately comes down to a fundamental philosophical difference in how we view technical education. You view this manual process as the foundational theory, the physics of the profession, so to speak. You have to understand the math before you use the calculator. I view the manual process as a legacy workflow that distracts from the complex realities of modern software oversight. But despite that, I think we are circling a deeply shared truth here.
We are. Despite our disagreement on the most effective pedagogical approach, we both fundamentally agree on the doctrine that underpins this entire curriculum.
Absolutely. Fluency is not evidence. A polished sentence is not a true sentence just because an algorithm generated it with absolute confidence.
And human review is, and always will be, mandatory. No matter how advanced the record automated becomes or how sophisticated future AI models get, the professional advisor cannot abdicate their responsibility. They have to check the output against the governed source material.
Furthermore, the client ultimately owns the final representation, not the machine. The AI is a fantastic language and organization assistant, but the client has to be able to stand behind that final output in an interview. If a hiring manager asks for the operational context behind a bullet point and the client can't answer because the AI invented it, well, the tool has failed. If the AI erased the client's distinctive, messy contribution just to make them sound more machine-readable, the process has failed.
Exactly. The record governs AI. AI does not govern the record. This curriculum leaves us with a fascinating exploration of how automation affects the human believable signal in our professional lives. It really challenges us to consider what happens to trust when beautifully polished language becomes infinitely easy to generate.
It really does. It forces anyone listening to decide for themselves whether true mastery of an automated system requires building the entire process by hand first, feeling every bump in the road, or if there's a more integrated way to learn governance while actually using the tools of the future.
Which brings us right back to where we started. When you step into the cockpit of that commercial flight, you absolutely want the autopilot to work flawlessly, but you also want the person sitting in the captain's chair to know exactly what to do when the screens go dark and the machine hands back control. Do they know how to actually fly the plane, or do they only know how to operate the software?
That is a question every single profession is going to have to answer as we move deeper into the age of AI.
Indeed it is. Thank you for joining us on this discussion of the LPR Academy curriculum. We will leave you to form your own conclusions on the delicate balance between manual mastery and automated efficiency. Until next time, keep questioning the surface and always check the source.